Hello, my lovely, inspiring human potential community. In this universal love energy transmission session, we will be clearing charged emotional mental patterns around finding your way. And really, we're going to be uncharging, unwinding, walking through a bit of those feelings that sometimes come about in finding one's way: loss of purpose, doubt, not knowing what next steps to take or do, to find how you can always tune into your mind, heart, and body and never feel lost again. And this is that place where I share also some psychoeducation and other tidbits before we begin. Anybody who's new, welcome. I'm Maria. I am somebody who creates content to support people's inspiring human potential, their greatest consciousness, infinite consciousness journey. And this is through that inner growth mindset and lifestyle approach. And we're always embracing human and spiritual elements. So the social sciences are my foundation, my academic career, and then what I keep on updating in. So the psychoeducation actually comes from an institute or company that I'm luckily able to purchase courses from and learn. It's kneecabum.com for anybody who's interested. Really great resources for you to understand how your body works. Because when I say body, I mean our body, and I mean our nervous system and our lovely brain. And here's a little bit of that info, particularly for those who never tune into the episodes. Yesterday I was watching one of the kneecabum YouTube videos that talked about undoing blame and shame. And there's this reality check that this doctor or psychiatrist, psychologist, he doesn't have that doctor, but Paul is his name. He explains the reality check that in his compassion training center he does with his own clients. So I want to share that here because, when you're feeling lost, people that I've talked to that feel this way, and they're adults, because as a teenager, as a kid, people aren't thinking of feeling lost. They're excited about life. And here's that part. Personally, I've never been lost in the sense of finding a way. I knew what I wanted to do when I grew up, and when I share that experience to those adults, they share with me how lucky that is and how, they feel kind of bad about being lost because they shouldn't. And so there's this shame and blame that doesn't help them. This is why I'm introducing these tidbits from Paul, because it's important to remember that you are either your best friend with your mind, you're either helpful or you're harmful, in the sense of you're not going to help you feel better. And our nervous system is what's engaged already in a fear state because it's defending you the minute you are agitated and not in a ventral state. So ventral state is when you're in compassion physiologically. And when you're in compassion, you feel the oxytocin and the other good feel hormones, and there's parts of the brain that light up and are involved, and the one part that must be involved for you to completely be in compassion is the prefrontal cortex. For the spirituality community, that's the third eye. And so your access to your infinite higher human consciousness is always readily available. It involves your body, not only the way others will speak about it, which is conceptual, beautiful information. In fact, yesterday for Food for Thought, we talked about Satori Samadhi, but in a 5D self-empowered, enlightened way, not like the little, rule book and stuff. We expanded on it because that's the part 5D expands on topics. So again, the regular community knows all of these different things of us bringing it together, bringing different topics together, because that's what empowers our expanding consciousness as human beings. And the body is part of that. Ventral state equals you and curiosity. It's you as a social, balanced human being. So this means when you're in a situation that you're not liking, and you're not blaming or shaming yourself, you're knowing this isn't my ideal situation. I'm not 100% comfortable here. I want to do something different. You don't judge or throw stones at somebody either, meaning blame or judge, again, in a way of thinking somebody has to be a wrong or right. Now, here's that mammalian heritage. We have this habit, but there's also a lot of people that keep on talking about things in twos. So again, shaming or blaming others isn't ideal for your infinite higher human consciousness expansion either. What is going to be helpful is when your mind is helpful, not in a state of negativity, not because you're not acknowledging what hurts or what is uncomfortable. You're not in a neural network that has sentences that are judgmental and not contemplative. Prefrontal cortex takes in information and is seeing what can be done. It's called the executive decision maker. While when you're in your temporal junction, you are fusing with suffering and or identifying with the situation, and that is more like when I see people talking about their past heartbreaks and just building upon it and saying, I'm always going to be this, or I'm always going to be that, or people are always going to do that, versus taking it day by day, ventral state. Again, you're in the now, you're grounded in the now, and you're completely at ease because your body, you're not in a physically life-threatening situation. You're in an emotionally and mental situation, which means you're involved consciously and exploring. So the one thing Paul mentions is we don't choose how our brain thinks, because you have a default network when you're first born that develops in the first 10, 12 months of your life. Your environment, you don't choose that, what context you're born in or grow up in, and your nervous system is immediately engaged to defend you in any time you get emotionally unsettled, which can be many times. And it's not a bad household per se. You don't know life. Anything that is overwhelming emotionally will be stored as trauma. And this is where I'll leave it at that, so that we don't go too farther long for these universal love sessions. I want to try and make shorter versions because I know that one is helpful for those who are on a time schedule. 3, you don't design what is happening. So we don't know the future. We don't know even when things happen, why it happened. People can go and find those whys in entities and stories. But again, the reality is there are many variables for why something can take place. So the other aspect that Paul makes clear to his clients is that you shaming and blaming yourself for something that you didn't control, you didn't, again, decide where you grew up, how you grew up, what happened to you, isn't going to get you to feel better, to be in a life that you want to be. And also there are patterns that don't support you to get to finding a place. So they help you to stay in a space of loss. And that's not fun, right? Nobody likes to feel helpless, hopeless. And most people that I know who are in that average, I'm going to say average, because really, if there's anything that is not, and anyone that is not, they're either struggling a lot, and we want to try and help them, or they're unfortunately struggling a lot in a different way and getting judged by humanity, if anything, as these bad people, when really they didn't choose their circumstances. And here's where we can come together as functional adults emotionally and know that every person on this planet has trauma, because our body began to adapt to whatever circumstance was presented. And emotionally speaking, people haven't been taught to look within themselves and explore those emotions. They've been taught emotions with a list of words and a list of scenarios, such as you have to go through pain to get to a beautiful place. In fact, in one of the cards for today's Shaman's Dream Oracle card, which I'm not going to read all of it to you, but they actually make this statement, which it's like, okay, let's stop creating battle in life. Your life is your life. It's not a battlefield. These feelings don't have to be competing with each other, because you actually have all feelings. I love, and I have all feelings that can accompany my everyday. Just ask my family members. I don't shame or blame, nor do I shame or blame people that have feelings and or behaviors with me that others would label in this evil, bad category. They're people. They have feelings, and there's a way they learned as infants to react to life in the best they could. I don't need to attack them. I can talk to them and talk through. Obviously, again, when people are willing and wanting to talk, because not everybody is in that space. So, especially when they're agitated. Now, the last part of Paul, he shares with them, once you can understand that you shouldn't shame or blame yourself for stuff that you did not have control over, but that your mind is yours, so you can either learn to drive it You learn to drive it by doing what? By sitting with your neural networks, by sitting with your thoughts. And that's why we're unwinding and uncharging situations together. Besides by the way, as an energy healer, for those again who are new, you don't know this, I am going to be connecting in this session to the universal love energy to allow myself, so through me, to send it and channel it to you. This is with your consent, of course, so we'll do this part of the process right now for everybody who does wish for me to channel universal love energy through me into you. It's always sent for your highest and best good. State yes in your mind or out loud, however you wish. Just say yes so that I may be connected and channeled, not me personally, but the universal love energy. Okay, I'm getting a minute here to connect. Okay, now that I'm connected to you energetically, we move forward with the last bit of Paul's tidbits to his clients, the ones that he was saying don't really know. They come in and they don't really know that they're not made bad. Some of them think, I thought I was just bad. Or he says, one of them says, I thought God just ran out of the nice things when I was born and he gave me all the bad things. There's a lot of different ways we can shame and blame ourselves into staying in situations and just feeling sense of loss. So finding your way and having a why, it can be just you living life. And that's why it's with enlightenment that I share the 5D self-empowered way. You guys know this. The other soul age groups are just as beautiful, but I'm trying to share enlightenment. Those who want to achieve this bliss of life. This is why Satori, Samadhi, these are components that can be experienced. What you want to begin being aware of is it's your body. The sensations that arise from our body then lead to our emotions and then to our thoughts. But the reality is, as an adult, you're really going mind, heart, and body. And so we love to make friends with our mind, inner growth mindset, and understanding that it's only quote unquote hard because the very minute you're beginning this process, your body is already defending you in a way it learned as an infant. And usually you learn to please and appease and or attach, cry for help, or collapse, submit, and or mix of all, flight, fight, freeze, pause. The average has secure attachment, but your body still, there were areas where you got scolded and you're like, oh, okay, not in your brain thinking, but in your body, like that's something that is not accepted. I have a lovely, unconditionally loving mother, and there were areas that I worked through on my own with my own body because of this idea of it's too much or it's too little or whatever it was. Again, not specifying. And it's not about finding one's way, but I'm trying to give you an example of it feels off to be you with traits that are a part of you. And so when people say, oh, I'm quirky this way, and they giggle about it, right? About being aware of that. It's not about you not giggling, because we'll always potentially interact with people with this level of embarrassment. But the part about making friends with your own body and your own way of feeling about it is what you get to do. That's why it's self-empowerment. And you're looking to the self, getting to know the self through the feelings. Your heart is always guiding you. Your body is always guiding you. So the part of not paying attention, it's not your fault. It's because as an infant, you're looking outside of you. Not to mention that our first nervous system's response when the ego self feels threatened is societal engagement. It's social engagement. You look outside you. By 6 months old, the attachment theory says we know, our body knows it needs to attach to survive. So you have a habit of looking outside of you and ignoring, quote unquote, the body. And when it comes to looking at the emotions, there's only like this list of good emotions, bad emotions, versus let's walk through those emotions. And when I say let's, it's you with yourself. FYI, that heartbreak comes from the part of our brain that they define as the monkey brain. And I believe, if I remember the infographic correctly, so don't quote me, And we have an attachment and defensive state. So we want to belong because, again, in the past, when our ancestors began, having towns and all, if you'd get kicked out, it would be survival all alone. So these are very important for you guys. When you feel lost, you're feeling that you don't belong, you're feeling that you're different, you're feeling that you don't know your way. And these are areas that are very important because there's not a knowing, right? And you're looking outside, and when you're comparing, here's that part when I tell people I knew where I was headed and I don't know. There's this feeling, wow, I wish I did. Because they want to make the best of their life. They want to feel empowered. So here's a side note for anybody who is an entrepreneur and or works in creating content. And I've always known this bit intuitively, which is why the inner growth courses that I created them in a way for people to do what they're always doing. Because you either do what you do, and that's how you empower yourself, or you won't. When you look outside yourself, you can be inspired. So these awesome entrepreneurs I worked with as an online marketer, very wise and very supportive. I'm still in contact with one of them. And I remember when we were talking about inspirational videos, motivational videos, and not to mention the studies that show they're not as popular. But besides the popularity, and this is on the YouTube channel particularly, because obviously if you go to other platforms, it may vary. The part of training within companies to get people inspired. The studies found that most people, they'll get all charged up, but then they won't commit. They won't go through with it long term. Same thing goes for to-do lists or resolutions. And so these entrepreneurs were sharing, because they worked with big corporations, these statistics, besides me already having that one, intuitive knowledge, two, reading enough psychology books to understand and know this. And here's why: my content is not meant to inspire or motivate, it's meant to empower you, which is the reason for sharing a little bit of information before we begin working with yourself, and obviously also allowing this lovely universal love energy to support you, because it is about you being able to learn, practice, be in your ventral state, be in your mind, heart, and body. And this is being in yourself, in your skin, with the sense of loss, and knowing that you have nothing to shame or blame yourself about. That you can feel lost, and guess what? You were an infant, a child, a teenager, a young adult, and even if you're an adult at this point, feeling lost is not a good or bad thing. You don't have to feel good or bad. Your life is not a race. These achievements, they're not your life. That's something that's outside of you. They have importance. You don't have to feel pressured to seek them out. You can identify the feeling. I feel pressure to seek out a specific path because society is built a certain way. So of course I'm coexisting. There's a difference between this and when people say, unlearn your training, unlearn your pattern. This is a contradiction because you are a human being who will always function based on a pattern. Do you know why? And here's where those people with cliche sentences that have come to me, even friends have told me this too many times for me to even list. It's not because humanity's stupid. It's not because humanity is lazy. Your nervous system, lovely, thank you, psychologists. I love every one of you that has taught me and keeps teaching me about the body. Your nervous system does not like the lack of predictability. It will react in a way that will defend you. Your nervous system hones in on pain, not because you must suffer, but because it is going to make sure that you do not suffer to the best of its ability. And it begins at infancy when you're experiencing sensations that you have no clue what's going on and you don't think. So it's not because of storylines, cliche sentences, and narratives. Yes, you can go ahead and integrate all those lovely metaphysics, esoteric teachings. I'm still learning more and more on that. We'll still integrate that. But my point is, it's the body of you that is, of course, trying to ensure that you are safe. That's what it is. So when you feel lost, thinking of society as your enemy isn't going to make friends with your life and isn't going to lead your mind to be helpful or lead you out of shame or blame feelings. Because guess what? You're blaming right now society for how you feel, which leads you to be an adaptive child response emotionally versus taking care of those emotions that you're feeling, helpless, hopeless, lost, and saying, okay, what are my options? Using your mind in its infinite higher consciousness potential. And that's being proactive versus shaming, blaming a group of people that, yes, you coexist with, and nobody's perfect. We're all imperfect. That's the part, being able to be neutral. We're all imperfect. And here's the beauty. I'll share the last tidbit of Paul's stuff. I think I basically shared what I wanted to make sure you would know. The other part was he explains how genes are affected by your environment. So epigenetics has been showing this, and one example he gives is that if you're in a very not loving, scary environment, abusive, neglective, that your oxytocin gene can actually turn off. And so this not feeling in a space of love, because oxytocin is the love gene if I remember correctly, it's something that is not just because you were born bad. This is what he's trying to say. Your genes, the environment, so many things that are not variables, you're in control. And here's the breakdown. Okay, so feelings are not just feelings. Your nervous system's involved. Now that we have that, I would like you to take a couple breaths. No, not a couple, because actually that doesn't allow us to do the rhythmic breathing that supports us to soothe our nervous system and to soothe our body, really. In fact, I giggled when I heard this presenter say that. No, a couple breaths isn't going to help calm you down. What you want to do is try to be in a rhythmic breathing pattern, because that will settle the body. So as you breathe in, let's do 5 seconds inhaling. That's activating our sympathetic nervous system. As we breathe out, we are activating our parasympathetic nervous system. That's when we feel safe. That's activated when our parents have held us as infants. And so the 6 seconds inhale is because the psychiatrist that I'm learning from, they've taught me how, when from the exhaling is when we're activating our parasympathetic nervous system, and elongating the exhale allows you to stay a little bit longer in that parasympathetic nervous system. So just rhythmically breathe, and if you don't want to breathe naturally, I'm trying to get you to center yourself right now so that we can begin the meditation inner growth exercise together with these lovely emotions and thoughts of loss, doubt, and or not knowing what next steps to take or do if there's something that you're really wanting to do. Okay, and to also remember to look to your heart, body, and mind when you feel lost, and to trust yourself. So to know that fear is part of our nervous system's response, so it's defending us. That means you can use your mind to think through what your next steps are. Now, if you have a great support system, and here's the part, when I say great, I'm talking about those who support the expansion of you, not those who shame and blame you. And this would be, your abundance flows where energy flows. If you're explaining yourself and you have to argue to explain yourself and you're always doing that, that's where your energy is going. And what example I was going to give you, my lovely mother, who I love to death, whenever there are moments that we disagree, we disagree. She's my mother. I understand her role and what she feels and will always feel that she's meant to do, which is guide me. And you guys can ask her, but I'll tell you, and I've told the stories a million of times, I've never wanted that guidance. And I've always argued with her. Don't tell me what to do. She's luckily for me always allowed me to do that, meaning I didn't get, slapped in the head, which is sometimes what she says. I should have spanked you more, that way you wouldn't talk back to me. And I said, well, I thank you for not having done that, so I don't feel shame or blame. Those who got spanked, even just a slight spanked, may have shame or blame. And so holding oneself back and not even acknowledging any longer that the body is saying, I don't want to be here, I don't want to do this, and really thinking that that's the norm, that's how life is. This is where people use these narratives. Life doesn't have to be that way. There are reasons for why it's this way, and I broke down to the best of my ability why, without blaming or shaming anyone or anything, not parents, not society, not humanity, because it's part of our mammalian heritage, it's part of our expansion and consciousness evolution. We are always learning. We did not begin with thinking brains. We did not begin with a certain type of way of being able to talk to each other. In fact, we began quite like nature and not talking to each other. The trauma is something that is of a collective nature as well. We're learning how to be in empowerment thanks to our words. We're learning to use 5D linguistic style. There's a lot of people bridging charged groups and bringing them together with harmony, because they're saying, here's the information, let's empower. So they're inspiring and motivating by empowering. This is the most beautiful thing. So clear that lovely mind, be at ease. And right now, what I do want you to do before we begin to focus in a little bit on these shaman's dream oracle cards is to identify how you feel about feeling lost, how you feel about if there's a loss of purpose, meaning you don't know why you live, like you just feel like there's no point. Maybe you ask, why do we live? Whatever doubt there may be. So on finding your way, something you don't know what to do next, again, whether it be involving a person, a situation, job, these feelings, doubt, loss, no purpose. Okay, so finding your way, we're going to focus on your heart, on just you, your way. You are your way. And this means, I'm going to spell it out, your beautiful personality traits. And for those vices that others deem as vices, those you get to work with and see, how can I ensure that I can be me? Obviously, we need to respect each other. So this is where it's not about one side being right or wrong, but whatever traits are considered vices, you want to think, okay, how can I make it work for me? And I'll use me as an example. I'm a talker, and in my entire years of life, this has always been something pointed out to me in a way that's not a positive, if you will. And I still, to this day, try to learn how to talk less. And I've done this in a number of ways. One, beginning by stating, I talk a lot, so just let me know. Realizing people won't tell you the truth because they feel socially obligated to be nice to you, no matter how many times you share with them, I'm telling you how it is. But knowing that there's others, because there are other people who will say, tell me the truth, and then, they get mad. So there's all of that stuff going on. I began to just try to pick up on cues to the best of my ability, and or to pause. So you work with yourself, okay? But no shaming or blaming. I didn't blame me or shame me. I didn't blame them or shame them. We're all different. So whatever those traits that, again, are vices, it's about you being able to know in a feeling format, because as children, we feel bad about them because we might get yelled at about them. That's the whole part. Or teased about them, and or a combination of all. So finding your way, again, we're focusing on allowing you to always be tuned into your heart. I'm trying to get you to be tuned into yourself, ego self, the name of you. Use your name. I'm Maria. Who are you? That's you. That's your way. The purpose for an enlightened person is not an achievement. It's not a number. It's not a label, a job. It's themselves and life. And when I say themselves, what I'm meaning is this Satori Samadhi we talked about. It is the bliss of being, existing, and knowing that every day is actually the experience of, if you want, Satori Samadhi, if you want, because you are consciousness, your mind, heart, and body. That ventral state, as we've learned, keeps you in curiosity, a loop cycle, but only you can choose that, and leads you to be always in compassion. This is that 5D state of consciousness. That's why it's unconditional love and neutrality. When you hear those who are in the spirituality community, They're not breaking it down to you with the nervous system and the brain and the human element. And so you get concepts, but those concepts keep you in a specific relationship with that state. When I break things down to you, I hope to always fill that gap and let you know your feelings are connected to your nervous system and your neural networks. You needing to sit in meditation is not what's going to keep you consistently vibing in enlightenment, but it is you in eventual state, learning how to breathe, if you will, but really it's about learning how to know what's going on with the body. Are you in a ventral state, or are you in a hypercharged or hypo-aroused state? I still can tell whenever I get tense, because again, our nervous system is actively going to be perceiving life, and any lack of predictability, it's going to make sure it gets our attention. That's natural. We are here to defend ourselves. You're a life form. It's not about defending because there's an evil, bad world out there. You're a life form that knows there you exist. So getting to know yourself, it's not about the external only. It's about all mind, heart, body together. So again, right now I'm trying to get you to create that relationship, mindfulness with your body, heart, and mind before we begin unwinding and charging on a specific situation that you're thinking about with doubt, or even just your life as a whole feeling lost. The heart and mind and body of you is what you want to have in your awareness. That's the star that guides you. It's not just a feeling, because we all have feeling. It's not just a feeling. It's a very specific feeling, and it comes from your nervous system in a ventral state. It's a feeling of ease and comfort, and it's a feeling that nothing's wrong, and people have broken it down. Even as somebody who grew up with faith, I still remember praying in certain ways and having that feeling. I still remember, and I still pray. But there was this one incident where these Jehovah's Witnesses came to the door and we prayed together, and they then tried to get me to convert, which I said, no, thank you. I'm Catholic. I'm good. But I still remember that prayer, that moment with so much love, so beautiful. That is our ventral state. We're in a state of compassion. We're in a state of safety. Your body is. You can learn this in time if you work with your mind and heart, so your thoughts and feelings. Knowing that when you feel it's too hard to think, when you feel lost, when you feel hopeless, it is your nervous system engaged. And it means it's protecting you. So don't shame or blame the feeling of hopeless, loss, doubt. It's not an enemy. It's a feeling that arises for a reason, and it doesn't have to stay in struggle. If you stop thinking of that moment of life with, I'm struggling, your nervous system is engaged in defending you. You make a switch. A very amazing and different way that helps you. Your mind is now helpful with information and not narratives of you having to go through this dark night of the soul or the ego death. Yes, these terms exist. I know what they are. I've experienced them. I would not label my life as an experience that needs labels. It's my life. You live your life. Labeling those experiences don't get you to walk through them emotionally. They get you to create a narrative. Two different things. This is why inspiration, motivational things don't work. The people don't learn to maintain the feeling of empowerment within their own body. They learn a tale, they learn a mantra, they learn a thing, and they just utilize again and again the external and are not anywhere near understanding that the inner world is what they need to work with. And when I say inner world, I'm talking again about your nervous system and your neural networks. So now that that's clear, learning it's neutral. There's no race. And remembering, by the way, that for many years, however old you are now, you've been working that way. So it requires your consistent desire to be in a state of ventral, to be in a state of ease, when you're not. And so when things are scary, when things are hard, when things are sad, when things are emotional, don't shame or blame. Allow yourself to know that you're not lost. Your way is right there in that moment. And it's called taking a minute to breathe and regain your centeredness, and then say, okay, I'm not being chased by a lion. I'm not being, held in any physical threat. I'm in a moment of life. It's called life, your life. And I'm really wanting to find a way out of this moment. And that's the first and only step every time. You do it again and again, inner growth versus staying in inner conflict, because that's a moment of conflict. You've just encountered that lack of predictability from the outside world, because the unknown, unexpected, unwanted, so feeling lost is one of those, is going to be in this space. You can be in a state of bliss and or neutrality consistently with life when you're not thinking of life as if it were battle format, which is also what the 5D self-empowered enlightened person has always been inclined to do in their entire life, and or will learn to do for those who regularly tune into the episodes and or are part of our community. You know that already. Everything in life is a catalyst to your expansion of consciousness, and we learn how to master and work with our physical, emotional, and mental planes. That's what I'm also doing right now. So let me focus in on these lovely cards that I chose. I have to say, there's a couple of things that they both hold within their description that I probably won't review. So, but you can ask me if you want an email, and I will do another one of these sessions and review them. The Drifter. The Drifter, what lights you up, experiencing life as it comes, seeking the essence but not knowing the form. Or we also have the subtitle, Experiencing Life as It Comes. They only use that one. I wish they would have added what lights you up. When it comes to finding your way, when it comes to feeling lost or having doubt of what next steps to take, what lights you up is anything that gets you excited. It's anything that helps you or always makes you feel free. This is why the people around you are very important. If you don't feel that you can be you with your quirkiness, you're not going to be lit up. You're going to be lit down, if you will, because you can't light up if you're not being unconditionally loved by those individuals, but you're being told by them what to do. It's like having other parents in your life. And people will have that with their own relationships, partners, as well as friendships, as well as society. Stay in this exchange that doesn't have to be that way if you allow yourself to be empowered within and know that you don't have to feel that you're not able to belong with quirks. It's up to you to get out of the adaptive child emotional response and into a complete functional adult emotional response with those traits. And what remains is slight embarrassment when you're interacting in social circumstances where you realize somebody and or group is teasing you or whatever it is going on in the back end, because that will take place as long as there are those who do not expand from adaptive children to functional adults, and so they stay in judgment and they look at a behavior and they judge it. Empowered person in 5D knows that that's not a reflection of them. It's not a bad reflection of another. It's a way of life that person's chosen to judge another person and to feel it that way. And really, they've not necessarily chosen it. They grew up with that, right? So they have perhaps not been taught anything different. You get to choose whether you're going to keep holding yourself in a space of confinement, quote unquote, when it comes to being a lit heart. And that lit heart is, again, being able to be proud and in love with who you are as you are, with the imperfections. learning true self-worth, as you learn to be okay with feeling lost and or not knowing where to head. So that lighting up, it's what excites you, what enriches you. People that don't do that for you, think of how much time you really want to be spending, because again, abundance grows where energy flows, and if you're with them, well, your energy is with them, not where you can be expanding and or allowing yourself to gain comfort with those traits with people that will be unconditionally loving and point them out to you in a very different loving way, by the way. When life brings to you unknowns unexpected, here's where this lovely, as we can see, ship out at sea is not necessarily in calm waters. In fact, that's why I have mixed feelings of the card, but it makes sense because that's how we feel when we're lost, right? When you're finding your way, it's not necessarily in the calm waters. I mean, depends. If you've always, again, led with your light, then you feel in calm waters, even as you're going towards the unknown. Personally, that's my experience. So that's why I don't match with the card, because whenever life slapped me silly, it was a slap that was witnessed, seen, taken, and okay, prefrontal cortex kick in, feelings, your own love kicks in, your own joy for life kicks in. There's no loss. There's your way. You're right there with it. You're your way. Okay, but do think of things that you personally have with this topic, please. I'm giving you examples to help you relate. I want you to feel the neutrality towards feeling lost and not having a way and not having a path, to disengage from the shame and blame that is in a body that has been existing with society, who you're always going to have the external to see, which is why your body naturally will come to certain conclusions and ideas when it comes to finding one's path, right? Having doubt and or feeling lost, not to mention our family and what they've guided you. So on my end, again, my lovely mother has always said, you can't plan everything. So while I'm the planner, I got told, and that balanced me out. I got told by a very important figure, here's what's going to happen. And so I was more prepared. And if anything, because I was the complete opposite, that helped me to be able and be in the middle quite easily. What lights you up? What lights you up? Hone in on what excites your heart. You don't have to think of what it looks like. You don't have to give it, an end. There's not that right now. Right now, you're really trying to find that way that lights you up every day. The people, the type of job environment, because, once you get into the job can be mundane. It's exact tasks, day after day after day. And that is where you can work with the mind in that circumstance and think of that job differently. But the environment is very important, and how you feel can you express. So some people have changed jobs because they can't express who they are in their work environment. Others have stayed there and learned to be able and be okay with different people. This is because they grew self-empowerment, and what that means is I am who I am and they're who they are. Nobody's a block to anybody. We just experience life differently. So of course, in those circumstances, you'll feel a way, and you are the one who's being the adult and knowing, because we're different. But those feelings you're transmuting as well to love, neutrality, compassion. You're not judging or casting stones because they're different. Your coworkers are not like you. People stay in a mindset with a feeling connected to the people they don't like. They choose to confine themselves and to say, I go to work every day with people I don't like. Well, you can change that right now by stopping to label those poor people who are not you, and removing that word I don't like, because again, here's that adaptive child that's become an adult. Everybody is different, and that's work. You work with the feeling, guys. It's not about the mind here. Here it's about being neutral towards other people that are not your type of people. Going from battle, duality, to neutrality, unconditional love. It's going to be the body. And yes, you can feel people's energy. We know this. But once again, empowerment means you're the centeredness. Here's why: your body, your heart, you're the master of it because you own it. You can steer your mind where you want to steer it. If you think, I don't like those people, you just steered your mind towards a feeling that is not bliss. In fact, it is one of judgment. And here's how that goes. And people will usually say, but life is blah, blah, blah. People are blah, blah, blah. And they'll give a bunch of objections to why they are not going to be able to unwind and uncharge that state consistently day after day after day. That is a conscious choosing. They have a we group that defends that. That's their choice. Same thing, it will always be your choice. But when it comes to therefore then thinking of what lights you up, when it comes to job, co-workers not being able to change, well, that dimness is going to stay. What you can do if you feel that that's just so impossible is then change the job. As long as we live and have our hands and our feet, and there are people that actually don't have all these things and they are still making way in their work, in their life. It is not because they're strong, because strength, we need a strength to lift something. What they have is emotional perseverance, emotional centeredness. They're not being drained of energy, which happens when you're in a hypo-aroused state, FYI, and when that collapse submit, remember we've talked for those who tune in. Physiologically speaking, we are an environment, energy. In fact, that reminds me where Paul, that doctor, states something very interesting, and I'll leave a short note for you guys to hear. He shares with people when they tell him, so if there's this type of person in this, who's the real me? So they're asking, who's the real me? And Paul says, the real you is an illusion. There are versions of you. There are versions of all of us. He's using we, meaning human beings, and that we are just patterns of electrochemical activity. What makes you you is the point of consciousness, not content. The content was created for you. And he's talking about the brain, the way the brain will work, because if your environment was not safe, you're not going to have positive thoughts. You're going to have a type of thinking, and your also body, again, is defending you with the defense mechanism it learned. So the more enlightened you become, the more aware you become, and that's where you start to own your own stuff, which means life. This is a psychologist. This is somebody who helps people to embrace life with compassion. We are these amazing electrochemical activity. As a Reiki master, I work with the aura, the energy bodies. There's 7 of them that I've listed and that I know of. But part is we're more than what we learn. And here's that part. We learn in doses because we're infants, children, young adults, or the teenagers first. So feeling lost, for those who feel that they don't know what lights them up, it's okay, guys. You don't have to actually have something that lights you up. You can have life light you up. And what that means is life, it has so much variables. The people and the things you can or can't do. You can get lost in thinking about what can't be done, or you can make it your mission, if you will, to just keep in mind, okay, today I'm feeling this way. What do I want to do about it? No shame or blame. Simple choosing to do something. Now, there are those who have shared with me that they feel that's so much. That's too much. It's hard. And let me move to the unmarked trail, Shaman's Dream Oracle card. An unprecedented, I can't pronounce this one. Unprecedented experience. I think I got it more correct this time. Discovery, revelation. So this is the unmarked trail. Let's talk about that. The unmarked trail, and here's where in the description they're actually using that whole, you have to go through pain before you get to pleasure, blah, blah, blah. And that's not, again, the case. The unmarked trail is a constant for us. The why do we live? The purpose, the human condition. And so thinking of your light and of what excites you as it being purely life is not something you're used to. You're used to thinking of knowing what it's going to look like, what it's not going to look like. Because again, we were being taught in a way. Why were we being taught in a way? Our body, our brain uses energy. And so it works a certain way because of patterns. And this is where people will judge a human's brain and talk about it in a way of it being limited instead of recognizing it learns a pattern because it's using energy. And I remember this from a Netflix documentary that I watched, because it gives energy to our organs, and there's a lot of things the brain is doing. So give it a break. The neural networks that develop, not only do they develop in time, and those recurring thoughts, I mean, the psychoeducation doesn't go in depth on this, but whenever I've heard it, I've always thought, well, if I need to use energy in different parts, I'm going to learn how to make sure I maximize my potential. And so to me, that lovely brain is just maximizing how it can be giving to everything that it needs to give. If you learn to work with your mind, this is when you learn, and neuroplasticity is finding this. When you're working with your mind, you get to stop rethinking things in a certain way. Here's the part: you're in your ventral state, and that is why you're open to just exploring versus staying in duality, which is what the adaptive child is in, emotionally and mentally speaking. This counts for anything. Anytime you're thinking, no, it can't be that way, and you're objecting to things on your own, you're creating and are living a parameter that doesn't really exist in the infinite consciousness field. You're used to it because, again, we have a way that it's easier for us to learn. So you can adapt your style. And it's with neutrality that we learn this for the inner growth mindset community, right? You allow the duality to exist, and really it's, in Carl Jung's terms, it's transcendent function. So you're sitting in your left and right brain hemispheres, or here, this is that samadhi and mahasamadhi, at least for my way of learning them. And when I say learning, I mean my interpretation is me being able to sit with thoughts, not judge them good or bad. There's also the other word, equanimity, which is part of what samadhi is intellectual equanimity, and mahasamadhi is great intellectual equanimity. So it's you being able to sit in neutrality and look at things. You're not ignoring feelings. You're looking, by looking I mean using your prefrontal cortex to make decisions. So this unmarked trail, revelation, allow yourself to know that when you don't know what the light is, or when you think, okay, it sounds silly to make my life about just life, that sounding, it's not a sounding, it's the body. It's that lack of predictability the nervous system knows. And what I mean by that, you've just given your nervous system another unknown. So it's still not centered in a known. It's not grounded in anything. It's like, okay, you just gave me a dark blank space. What am I going to do with this? And so here's that part. Once you've been able to accept you guys, and there's no shame or blame. So hopefully this is honing in on, it's okay to feel lost. It's okay not to have a way. It's okay to have doubt. It's okay not to know what steps to take. This is what I'm trying to bring to you. Unwind, uncharge the quote-unquote negative feeling, the shame or blame in not having a way, not knowing what to do, in understanding you don't choose the variables of life. You can only work with what you're feeling, thinking, in that very second that it comes across to you. And the body information is meant to empower you, because even though it sounds mechanical to those who don't want and don't choose to do this with their own life, we're not mechanical in machine ways, but we have a body that functions in a certain way, and our anatomy and our physicians and all that beautiful, stuff, science that learns about it is explaining it to us. And we're even learning about our cellular process now thanks to technology. So that's why a psychiatrist can say we're electrochemical activity, but there will still be many people who say no, that's bullshit. It's like, okay, dude, they're using machinery to see this. I understand that it goes against everything you learned, but it's there. So this is where you guys get to contemplate these pieces of information for yourself on your own. But the body information is what's empowering this entire process. And every time I share something, because again, I get to say your body is what consistently is with you. And those sensations are what keep you either low on energy or centered. And remember the map of consciousness by Dr. David Hawkins in The Power versus Force. He's measured those hertz. So when we're in shame, it's 20. Shame is the lowest of. And here, shame is something that those in abusive and neglective households have a lot of. Not to mention people raised with achievement-based worth. This societal thing, it's not a constraint. It's a feeling of shame because, we were reprimanded. To be a grown-up means we can be okay with that, and to be neutral and empowered with that, then you can voice to those situations something calmly because you're empowered. This is why the charged states are people who are taking it personally and they then charge at each other. Two different things. They have conditions for each other. They're not in a 5D state of consciousness. So neutrality as a feeling towards feeling lost, not having a way. And your light is yours to choose whatever it is you want. Ownership is what will lead you to being able to persevere. Battle is not going to empower you. So thinking of life as a battle is going to distribute your energy two ways, which is going to weaken you, quote unquote, because you're not in your actual safe state, your ventral state, which allows you to be curious in a curious loop and a compassionate loop, which is what gets oxytocin and all the good feel hormones to come in. If you're not in the compassion and ventral state, then you're in a hyper-aroused or hypo-aroused state, and physiologically, you're not safe. So don't expect the body to feel okay with the unknown, with the unexpected. It's not even about finding your way. You simply disengage from allowing yourself to work with the very element that is leading your body to feel that this moment is hopeless, helpless, hard. Doubt is something that gets you to sit and really consider. The same thing with life and light and your heart. And making life something that lights you up from within in an abstract sense, if you will. So removing the societal labels is not going to remove you from actually coexisting and creating everything that you want. It will simply make things, if anything, easier for you because you work with the body. So when you're getting anxious, you're going to learn to recognize it, or even right now after this episode, it's about, I'm in doubt, I'm in fear, I'm in upset. Let me begin with that lovely breathing, and you also choose the feeling. Bringing neutrality, because sometimes it'll be a challenge for those who get frustrated with themselves in life. And again, as somebody who loves life, I've never actually gotten angry with life. I've only gotten upset with myself for taking too long. But that's the part. It's never too long. It's the time it requires for mind, heart, and body to be on the same page. And when life and unknowns are there, well, guess what? You can't see anything, guys. And so you still are working with fear. The difference is if you are your center, you're not afraid. And if life is not a bad or good thing, same thing with humanity, again, you have no enemy to battle. And so you're not afraid. And you're really just sitting with your consciousness your thoughts and feelings and your body, and knowing I'm experiencing a moment of loss. I don't know where I'm headed. I don't know what's going to happen. Now, here's the part. You can get excited if you want. This is what some people talk about. I am a very grounded person, and I take things step by step personally. So what I'm going to share here is excitement and or other types of emotions in that moment have personally not served me, and they are not negative, but there can be you setting yourself up for disappointment. And therefore, I would say neutrality, if I'm sharing my thoughts with you guys as one of the tools, emotional tools to use, is that, and patience and perseverance. And here's the part of why there's a difference with what I try to share with that inner growth mindset and gaining 5D self-empowerment with enlightenment the human way. It isn't the disengaging from any entity belief in the why and making that why do you live, what's your purpose. Just simply, this question is what humanity has began pondering, and that is something that has many variables and answers. And in a moment of you questioning this why, you are in a space of trying to find your way, which means you are lost and in doubt and are not knowing what to do. Thinking in the past is going to what? Lead you to the past. Thinking in the future is going to do what? Lead you to the future. Your power of now, staying in a ventral state, using your prefrontal cortex and staying in the now. And what's the now? I don't know what's next. The best that I can do is envision what I'm going to do and really write it down and take steps. The feeling is where you're going to leave that and work with it, emotionally speaking. Finding inner harmony, finding peace in the absence of a known. Because it is in that very space that I see so many people getting lost and not enlightening, if you will. And what I mean by that is they do give a why to that moment of life, versus sometimes things happen and they don't have to be thought of as good or bad. What's happening when they happen is you're having a reaction, and it's an emotional one, it's a physiological one, and it will be accompanied with a thought, which usually is something that if it's slapped you silly, right, it's not going to be like, yay. And this is the times when we are contemplating and finding ourselves in spaces of loss, by the way, because you know your way when you're happy, don't you? So again, I would say very much so to disengage from expectations, from putting in any type of word, any type of emotion of something that will, and it's not to disengage from other, how can I call it, aspects. If you want to do, affirmations and visual boards, all that stuff, it's not that. It's not about that. I'm literally trying to help you work with the body, heart, and mind in a moment where there won't be an answer. Or really, if you try and keep trying to find an answer, it's not going to change how you feel and that moment. Your now is not any different than it was yesterday or tomorrow, is what I'm trying to get at. And I'll use a very simple example. My cat, it was 3 years ago, went missing, and then obviously he never came back. And to this day, it still makes me upset. See, I still, because one, there were a lot of things happening in that moment. But this is the part, there is no why. And for as much as people share whys, and I'm part of the spirituality community, so I actually even had a channeler tell me certain things, didn't make it any better. And nothing makes sometimes things better, except for one very beautiful, beautiful thing. Thank you, psychoeducation. Learning how the nervous system works and how my mind works when I'm in that state. and learning about what the ventral state means. So again, I share this with you all in the hopes of supporting you to become empowered from your physical, emotional, and mental planes in moments of loss, which is empowering from your heart because you're in a state of neutrality and unconditional love, and you're not blaming life or blaming or shaming or anything. You're not getting lost in those types of narratives, which really are being stated in a moment where what you really need is to hug yourself and or get a hug, and that's about it. Because the hug activates our parasympathetic nervous system. And so that's I feel better now. I feel safe now. I hope that this episode helps you to be okay with finding your way from the place that is most important, the heart of you. So before we go, if you do want to hone in on anything specific that you're looking to find your way on, where you feel lost or in doubt, pick it up, think of it, whatever the situation, okay? Feel where is it in the body that you're feeling fear, upset, sadness, helplessness, hopelessness, shame, guilt, blame, okay? And I'm sure there's a bunch of different thoughts crossing your mind. I want you to hug them all, like visualize embracing all these thoughts. Okay, now I want you to really start that breathing again and just feel neutrality. Okay, just feel into this word neutrality. And then remember, where are you? Are you safe? Are you at home? Are you in front of a screen? Where are you? Just sit there for a minute. Okay, so right there. And still hug those thoughts. I'm asking you to hug your thoughts, all of them, all of whatever it is that you usually will cross your mind about this thing. Now take a deep breath and a sigh of relief, because you're really not in any urgency. Your life is your life. There's no race. There's nothing to have to speed up towards, especially not right now where you're emotional, because the emotion of loss is not going to help you be clear. Okay, so with this breather and just trying to let yourself know this weight on your shoulders, this big decision, okay? Let it be what it is. It's something very, very important to you. There are no right or wrong ways when it comes to making choices for where you want to go next. Experiencing life as it comes is not the nervous system's natural way of feeling prepared. Okay, so you're facing something that your body literally is scared of. Now let's add our lovely heart. Whatever it is, the situation, there are emotions involved, the ego self. Some may be mature, some may not be, So there may be shame, blame, guilt, stuff like that. Okay, that you hold against yourself or others or whatever it is that you're dealing with. I'll give you an example. When Milo, my cat, went missing, the first night was really not well. I immediately thought, I can't even talk about it. I immediately thought things that weren't helpful. Don't do that. Okay, so disengage from what doesn't help. And allow yourself again to think of what can you do to take steps for what does help. I went ahead and made a bunch of flyers and I went with my younger sister and distributed them all over the place, by foot, by the way, because I don't drive. So I have licenses, but that's one of those things that I don't do very often. Okay, so with this in mind, guys, and even my little emotional moment, what I'm trying to say is that's something, okay, it's natural, it's important, whatever it is that you're finding your way on, that there's loss, it's important. There's not going to be a right or wrong way. If you're still in that, you're really wanting an answer. You're really wanting that everything to come to be. Okay, so what you can do now is make choices of what steps you can take. So with the shame, blame, guilt, sadness, whatever emotions that arise in you, you can only allow yourself to be in a state of love and neutrality, because that moment is important. Otherwise, you enter those narratives. They don't help. Narratives don't help to take action. They keep you in your temporal junction. They keep you fused with the emotion that you're feeling. We're looking to unwind and charge and move forward, and to be able to do that time and time again whenever these moments arise. In the overall scheme of things, by the way, being lost, not knowing a path, is not a shame or blame thing. You are your path. If you choose to be, if you want to be. Life is your path. It doesn't have to have a job title, a specific mission. You're alive. That's it. And every day is a journey and an adventure. Every day we don't know what comes our way or not. So take it step by step. And believe me, if you take it step by step, you will find that light. And it's going to be in an empowering way, because you're not racing against some invisible time clock. That the only time clock we have is that we don't know if we have tomorrow. So just make sure that every day is your best day, and know that long term is for you to decide as well. So if you do feel you want to change a job, all these things, sit down with yourself day after day and make a plan. It's day by day. This is the part. You want to be empowered. Now, if you want to surrender and still live in another way, that's for other things. Here, I'm trying to help you be empowered from your heart. So you are your star. You guide you. It's a feeling that comes with thoughts as well and decisions. But it's what makes you feel free. It's what makes you feel happy. It's what makes you feel safe. It's what makes you want to wake up every day. Okay, that is, whoever that is, whatever that is, you want that. That's your, goal, and it'll come. So when it's involving other people, obviously that's where it depends on things, but you can always have that knowledge and share it with those other people. And so with that, it's a circumstance like with Milo. I couldn't do anything about it, right? So be in a space of neutrality and love with yourself, with the situation, and know that you're always experiencing life as it comes. Being able to be in neutrality and love is what's going to help you to recognize that an unmarked trail where something unknown presents itself, an unprecedented experience, discovery, or revelation, it's going to be that. It's going to be new. So following it isn't going to be easy or hard. It's just new. You get as much time as you want to work with it. I'm, as you guys can tell, still working with my heartbreak for my lovely Milo. I don't blame life. I don't blame him. I don't shame or blame myself. I love him. It's natural. Whenever we love someone, that actually to me is the most beautiful representation of what is meaningful to you. But again, it's your choice to make life, the unknown, unexpected, unwanted, your catalyst. And this is where it's your choice to be a 5D self-empowered, enlightened individual, and or somebody who's inclined to approach and access their infinite higher human consciousness. It's 5D and above, because 5D is unconditional love and neutrality. Self-empowerment is you empowering the self, the ego of you, ego self, you working with your mind, emotions, and body. Okay? We don't have to believe in something more or not. You're working with the essence of you. You are life. Everything that is within you is. And you're in the driver's seat, either steering or not. Now that we've been able to do that, I have disconnected from you guys. And I look forward to hearing how this supports you in finding your way, and also in becoming friends with when moments of loss, doubt, or not knowing what next steps to take comes about. So please do reach out and have a wonderful day.